Why do we do the things we do? Today, we're diving deep into this really cool podcast. It's called Mind Matters.
And the best part is it's actually based on science.
All right, so have you ever gotten so hyped up for a party?
Yeah.
You spent all week thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the perfect outfit, and you've even practiced a few jokes in the mirror.
Yep.
But then you get there, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
it's a total flop.
A dud.
Yeah, total dud. Why does that happen?
It's a question a lot of us ask. And it turns out there's a really cool neurological explanation
Oh,
that has to do with dopamine.
dopamine. I thought that was the feel-good chemical.
Well, it is, but it's not that straightforward.
Okay.
Dopamine is more about motivation and anticipation of rewards rather than just straight up pleasure.
So it's my brain is getting excited about the potential for good things.
It is, think of dopamine as your brain's hype squad.
Okay, so my brain is basically throwing itself a pre-party before the actual party.
Exactly, and that pre-party can be amazing.
Right.
Dr. Paul Dolan, who is a behavioral scientist at the London School of Economics, describes how events like parties get a triple dopamine hit. First, there's the anticipation beforehand, then you have the experience itself, and finally the reminiscing afterward.
Okay.
But here's the catch. If we overhype that first stage, the whole experience can actually feel less enjoyable.
Wait, so you're telling me that looking forward to something too much can actually make it less fun?
I am. It all comes down to how our brains process dopamine. The excitement we feel leading up to something.
Like picking out an outfit.
Exactly. That planning, picturing conversations, all of that triggers dopamine production in the brain.
So the more I build up this party in my mind,
Yeah.
the more dopamine my brain is pumping out.
You got it. And that dopamine travels along these neural pathways, activating the reward centers in our brain.
Wow.
But our brains have limits.
Oh.
When we create these ridiculously high expectations, we risk what Adrian Mattei, who is a health journalist and some researchers, call dopamine overflow.
Dopamine overflow. That sounds intense.
Imagine you're pouring a glass of water, and you keep pouring even after the glass is full. What happens?
Well, it spills everywhere, makes a mess.
Right. That's kind of what happens with dopamine overflow.
Oh.
The anticipation builds up this idealized mental movie, which is often way more exciting than reality could ever be.
Yeah.
Then when the actual experience doesn't match the hype, our brains are left with all this extra dopamine leading to a crash.
So that's why I end up feeling let down, even if the party wasn't objectively bad.
Yeah.
It's I got too full-on dopamine before the main course even arrived.
That's a great way to put it. And the science behind it is fascinating.
Really?
A key player in all of this is the prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
The part of our brain that's responsible for planning decision-making and predicting rewards.
So my prefrontal cortex is basically trying to plan for this amazing party that only exists in my head.
It is no wonder it gets disappointed.
Right. It's almost like my brain is playing a trick on me, setting me up for disappointment.
It is in a way. But the good news is, by understanding this whole dopamine system, we can start to manage our expectations and find more consistent enjoyment.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we stop turning every party into a potential dopamine letdown?
Well, one strategy is to create what some experts call a dopamine menu.
The dopamine menu. Now I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Think of it like planning your meals for the week.
Yep.
Instead of relying on this one massive dopamine feast at the party,
Right.
you sprinkle in smaller, more frequent, what I like to call dopamine snacks.
Dopamine snack.
Throughout your day or week.
Okay, I'm liking this analogy already. So what kind of things would go on this dopamine menu?
It's all about identifying those activities that consistently bring you joy. Even in small doses, Dr. Laurie Santos from Yale suggests kindness kicks as great starters.
Kindness kicks.
Something as simple as complimenting someone or sending a thoughtful message can give you a quick boost.
So spreading a little kindness can actually boost my own dopamine levels.
It can. It's like we have this mini reward system built into our brains.
Huh. Interesting. Another starter could be mindful breathing.
Absolutely. Ben Bidwell, a breathwork guide,
Okay.
explains that deep rhythmic breathing can trigger the release of these feel-good hormones.
Interesting.
It helps to ground you in the present moment.
So if I'm really getting swept up in all those pre-party fantasies, I can take a few deep breaths and bring my dopamine levels back down to earth.
You got it.
Okay.
Then for your main courses, think about activities that really light you up and give you a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Maybe it's tackling that creative project you've been putting off,
Right.
or getting lost in a good book, or spending time with loved ones.
So things that bring me genuine satisfaction, but maybe don't require the same level of anticipation as like a big event.
Exactly. And for dessert, allow yourself some guilt-free pleasure.
Okay. Like what?
Maybe it's indulging in a favorite hobby.
Yeah.
Or taking a long bath, or savoring a delicious meal.
I love this idea of a dopamine menu.
Yeah.
It's like I'm taking control of my brain's reward system and spreading out all those feel-good moments throughout my week. But what about those times when I can't avoid getting hyped up for something like a big event?
Well, there are other strategies we can use in those situations.
Okay.
Mick Wicking, CEO of the Happiness Research Institute,
Wow.
has a great tip that he calls the 6-month rule.
The 6-month rule, I'm all ears. What is that?
When you find yourself getting anxious or overly fixated on something, ask yourself, will this matter in 6 months?
Whoa, that is a really powerful question. I can already see how that would shift my perspective.
Often the answer is no. That part of you're stressing over all those details you're obsessing about.
Yeah.
In 6 months, will they really make a difference?
Probably not.
This exercise helps us put things in perspective and prevent those dopamine spikes and crashes that lead to disappointment.
So it's like telling my brain, hey, chill out. This isn't as big a deal as you're making it out to be.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly freeing because when we release the pressure of needing everything to be perfect, we open ourselves up to the possibility of finding joy in the unexpected.
I like that. And speaking of unexpected joy, I've heard that meditation can also play a role in regulating dopamine. Is that true?
It is Mark Hamer, a seasoned meditator and author, writes about this in his work. Meditation doesn't just calm our minds, it actually helps regulate dopamine levels in a more sustained way.
So it's not just about relaxation.
No.
It's about training our brains to find joy in a more balanced way.
You got it. Meditation gently raises dopamine levels.
Okay.
But without the dramatic peaks and valleys that come from chasing those external rewards.
So it's like we're building up our dopamine stamina.
I like that.
So we're not as susceptible to those big crashes.
Exactly. It's about finding a sustainable approach to joy and satisfaction.
This is all starting to come together.
Yeah.
We've got our dopamine menu for consistent joy.
Yeah.
The 6 months rule for perspective. And meditation for building dopamine resilience. Anything else we can add to our toolkit?
I think it's important to also address the role of our culture in all of this.
What do you mean?
We live in a society that constantly emphasizes the big event, the epic experience.
It's true.
Social media is full of images of perfect parties, perfect vacations, perfect lives.
It's like we're constantly being bombarded with these messages that happiness is only found in these extraordinary moments.
And that can be so damaging. Because when we buy into that belief, we set ourselves up for disappointment.
Right.
We start to devalue the ordinary, the everyday moments that actually make up the majority of our lives.
It's like we're so busy chasing the next dopamine rush that we forget to appreciate the simple things.
Yeah.
A quiet cup of coffee in the morning, a walk in nature, a heartfelt conversation with a friend.
Exactly. And those simple things are often where the real magic lies.
I like that.
Dr. Sonja Lyubomirsky,
Okay.
who is a leading researcher on happiness,
Okay.
emphasizes that true happiness isn't about chasing these fleeting highs.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating a sense of contentment and gratitude for what we already have.
So maybe the key to avoiding party disappointment and disappointment in life in general is to shift our focus away from the big events.
Yes.
And start noticing those smaller, more subtle sources of joy that are all around us.
That's a great insight. It's about recognizing that happiness isn't a destination. It's a way of being present in the world. And that includes being present in those everyday moments, not just the ones that we've built up in our mind.
But before we wrap things up, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that by focusing too much on managing our dopamine, we might be missing out on other important aspects of life?
That's a really interesting question, and one that deserves further exploration.
Okay.
Perhaps in our pursuit of constant excitement and reward, we've become less attuned to the subtler forms of happiness that come from things like connection, meaning, purpose.
That's a really great point. Maybe the key is to find a balance between embracing those dopamine-fueled moments of joy
Yeah.
and also cultivating those deeper, more enduring sources of happiness.
I think you're onto something there. It's about finding a way to live a life that's both exciting and fulfilling,
Yeah.
where we can savor those highs without being consumed by the lows.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. I'm definitely going to be mulling over these ideas for a while.
Me too. And it's worth noting that this whole deep dive was inspired by the work of Ivana,
Yes.
whose research and insights on dopamine have been invaluable.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to include links to her work in the show notes so you can delve deeper into this topic if you're...
Absolutely. Have you ever experienced that party letdown phenomenon?
Yeah.
What strategies do you use to manage your expectations and find joy in those everyday moments?
Yes.
Share your thoughts and experiences on our social media channels.
Yeah.
We're always eager to hear from you.
Until next time, stay curious, stay mindful, and keep exploring the world around you. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling inspired to start applying some of this stuff to my own life.
Me too. It's definitely a lot to unpack.
For sure.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what deep dives are for, right?
Absolutely.
So until next time, happy exploring.
Yeah. Keep those brains working.